Well, good evening and welcome to our very first virtual Politics and a Pint with Chris Plante, live from Washington, D.C. I'm Bill Hess, Program Director of WMAL here in the nation's capital. Thanks very much for being with us this evening. And thanks too to our sponsors tonight, Cornerstone First Financial. Find out how much money you can save every month by sending your most recent mortgage statement to Cornerstone First Financial for a free refinance or home purchase rate quote. They'll meet or beat your current mortgage offer. Visit cornerstonefirst.com. The wine outlets provide local welcoming spots to discover new producers and find exciting classics at great prices and with great service. They offer 3 easy ways to shop their extensive collection: in-store, online, or through their app, with free pickup and local delivery. The RAFT Strategy is a retirement approach free of tax. Learn how you can avoid paying high income taxes in your retirement years. Get in touch with David Aarons by logging on to webuildyourwealth.com to learn how the RAFT strategy can work best for you. And the Chris Plante Cruise 2022. Set sail with Chris, his best girl, and other Chris Plante Show fans to Alaska in August of 2022. Click on chrisplantecruise.com to book your suite and take advantage of our special pricing. So this evening, ladies and gentlemen, we'll hear from Chris for a bit, and then Chris will answer your questions on our video feed. Now, some of you have already submitted your questions. If others of you have questions, please submit them through the Q&A function on your screen, and then we'll pop you up to ask your question later in this evening's program. Settle back, enjoy. Ladies and gentlemen, there's only one Chris Plante.
Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our first and so far our only virtual Politics and a Pint. What with the woo and everything, you know, it's hard to get people gathering in one place like we did last time around. Last time we were at the Trump National Golf Course in Sterling, Virginia. And we had, I think, 185,000 people. It was the biggest crowd ever assembled in person anywhere on the planet Earth in the history of humankind. The fire marshal actually had to shut us down. Parking was at a premium blocks away. And it was a really great event, a wonderful event. And our plan is to get back to those as soon as we can, of course, as things get back to normal. I'm making quotation marks with my fingers. And in order to accomplish that, of course, we're going to have to take advantage of what the world knows as the Trump miracle. The Trump miracle is the record-setting pace that Operation Warp Speed produced a number of vaccines, not just one vaccine, but never before, honestly, never before in human history have we as a species, as a people, produced a vaccine to a newly emerged virus, as we did during the Trump administration with Operation Warp Speed. And remember that Fauci guy? I don't think he actually did the thing. He did the mask, don't wear a mask, and then wear a mask, and then and then wear 5 masks, and then forget about it. And if you've been vaccinated, should you wear a mask? You know, the Dr. Rand Paul, he's a senator and a doctor. He's a doctor and a senator. And he, boy, he's been through the ringer, hasn't he? Dr. Senator Rand Paul. He's a real doctor, though, not like Dr. Jill Biden, who's not a real doctor. If you're having a heart attack, don't call Jill Biden. She'll just read you a children's book or something. Not Dr. Seuss, but some other kind of children's book, because she's a different kind of doctor. But this thing has obviously turned the world upside down, as we all know. We've all kind of been sheltered in place for about a year now. It was about a year that we remember 2 weeks to flatten the curve. 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Well, a lot of curves have been flattened in the meantime, no doubt about that. But we're still, we're getting there. We're getting there. You know, the great, the Ted Cruz moment, we played the audio on the big radio show this morning. I should say thank you to Bill Hess, who's down the hall. We're here at the radio station, WMAL, you may have concluded. And Bill Hess, the program director here, doing the introduction, who normally does the introductions at our Politics and a Pint and our free speech forums at the Birchmere, which we also are looking forward to getting back to, in-person stuff where we're shaking hands, drinking beer in person, acting like normal people, you know, in a normal world, in Western civilization, where our rights have been restored and things like that. We are looking very much forward to getting back to that as soon as possible. We're gonna have to clear it with the lawyers first, I think. You know, forget the doctors, really the lawyers are the big thing when it comes to all this stuff. But Ted Cruz, with a group of Republican senators behind him, and when he stepped up to the podium to speak, he took his mask off, you know, and a reporter had a little hissy fit little hissy fit, I think, and said,
Could you put your mask on?
I'm having a press conference here, says Senator. He's not a doctor, but he's a senator, and from Texas. And he said, I'm holding a press conference here, and besides, we've all been immunized. That was a word even, but
it should make me feel better.
That's Jay Leno over here apologizing. And he said, sure make him. That's Michael Piercy, and he's going to be joining us in a few minutes. And the hissy fitty reporter, I'm making quotation. You can see when I'm, so I don't have to say that I'm making quotation marks with my fingers. Said, it sure make us feel more. Okay, we've been immunized. What are you just going to cower in fear for the rest of your pathetic, miserable, useless life? Go away. And Ted Cruz, I'm paraphrasing, but Ted Cruz said, well, you could walk away. There's a big open space behind you. You could just go, because you're already about 14, 15 feet away. We've all been vaccinated. We've all been immunized. I don't know if you know what these words mean. Very often they use the words, but they don't know what they mean. But it was a great moment for Ted Cruz. The media hated him for it. That was the media, the guy speaking. It should make us feel more comfortable. And maybe being at home, wrapped up in a warm blanket, watching cartoons would make you feel comfortable. And maybe that's where you should be. Just saying. So we got a lot of great stories today. I want to get into the Joe Biden press conference from a couple of hours ago. It was a humdinger, wasn't it? It was something. The news media loved it. They loved Joe Biden. I think he did a great job. He did not self-immolate. He did not actually tumble down a flight of stairs. He didn't clutch his heart and fall to the ground. So he gets an A for the day because the bar is set so low. They had to dig a ditch to set the bar for Joe Biden at his first press conference. And I tell you, I was texting with friends. Good friend of mine said, longtime news guy, former news guy now, said, I think this will be Joe Biden's last presidential press conference. And it was, 64 days or into his presidency. And it's his first press conference. And it may be at least that long before we see him again holding a press conference. I mean, again, the press thinks that he did a great job. He took queries, if you will, which are similar to questions, but a little more intimate, from a total of 10 reporters. And they were, on balance, quite adoring. They were loving questions. It wasn't at all like a Trump-era press conference where they screamed at him and they threw explosive devices at him, and Jim Acosta threw chairs at him and screamed at the top of his lungs with blood running out of his eyes and screaming how much he hates Donald Trump. And Donald Trump, President Trump, of course, would stay there until they were all exhausted. He would answer all of their questions until they were done with questions, so they couldn't breathe anymore. They had to go home and talk to their moms or something. He would exhaust them. Joe Biden, he started out exhausted himself. He drifted off a couple of times in the middle of sentences. At one point, he asked somebody a question, and it was he had a little cheat sheet that told him who to go to, who to ask a question of, in what order. Zach from the Associated Press. Then let's go to Yamich or Yamichi, Alcindor or Alcindor. I think it's both, which are the same. And he spent 11 minutes talking to Yamich because she is a Democrat Party booster and cheerleader. She's got Obama stickers on her car and Biden stickers on it, Hillary stickers on her car, impeach Trump stickers on her car. And metaphorically, of course, if she doesn't have them literally, and she might, probably a Prius or maybe a Maserati, because she has jobs with about 6 different news organizations all at once. It's an amazing thing. So I hope you had a chance to watch it. And nobody asked. It was terrible. And Joe Biden was, again, he asked a question over here, and the podium is here, and he's standing, and he's reading off the thing. And now let's go to Zach and he's looking around, and he doesn't know who they are. And even Chunk, the former Democrat Party Senate campaign staffer, whose wife runs a Democrat political operation in Alexandria, Virginia, just across the mighty Potomac River from Washington, D.C. She runs, she was working, her company, she's got a company, it's a company. And she works for Democrats, obviously. And she took in almost $3 million from the Bernie Sanders campaign in 2016. A lot of good, but it enriched the Chunk family. They probably got another beach house and another Mercedes station wagon or something like that. But they, they're all Democrats. They're everywhere you go. Joe Biden wants to do an interview. He's like, well, let's see, which former Democrat staffer should I choose to do the interview? Lastly, the first network interview did was with George Snuffleupagus, of course, now of ABC News, formerly of the Clinton White House, and of who did he work for? Tom Daschle or something on Capitol Hill in the House of Representatives. And he's, Democrat Hill staffer, then Democrat campaign staffer for the presidency, then Democrat White House staffer, then bam, overnight, he's one of the world's great journalists making $17 million a year at ABC because, they didn't know where to find journalists. They find them in Democrat White Houses and things. He could go over to CNN. CNN had a good one. You see, what's her name? That Caitlin Collins. That might have been the best question of all. Although now Yamich said, you are so beloved and respected and revered worldwide. It was like a religious experience for her asking the question. That people are flocking to the United States. It's like Life of Brian. I'm not Jesus, I'm Brian. And no, I think did he say, blessed are the cheesemakers? I'm pretty sure he meant purveyors of all dairy products. But people are now flocking to the United States in droves because Joe Biden is so beloved. I learned that from Yamich Alcindor, Washington journalist today. That was good stuff. And she did. She said, we'll have the audio for you tomorrow on the big radio program. It was entertaining to watch. I was texting with a few friends back and forth on the progress, such as it was. I might have missed a couple of the good things while I was texting with friends and laughing and taking a couple of notes with my Skillcraft pen and on my printer paper. And then I promptly left my notes at home tonight. So it's all right. I'll have them for the show tomorrow. Good stuff. And Michael Piercy. Michael Piercy is over here. He's really going to do occasional impersonations and stuff. But it was sad in many ways. You wouldn't let him, if you're leaving a restaurant or something and you're with the Joe Biden that we saw today, you wouldn't let him drive. You get into the parking lot, you go beep beep. He's like, hey, where's my car? Let me take the car. I'll drive you. Where are you going? I'll give you a ride. Don't worry about that. I'll drive you. You probably shouldn't be for whatever series of reasons. And then, of course, the woman asked a question in front, and he wandered away from the podium. And he's like, he does this. I got a beer in my hand, but he wanders away from the podium, like this, and he doesn't know how to move his arms, and he's a little awkward. I think it's, I'm not a doctor, so I don't want to diagnose it over the television, like they did with Trump, diagnosing President Trump. Remember, he had to take President Trump the cognitive test. You recall that? When he became president, because the news media was very concerned that he wasn't altogether there. But they don't have a concern in the world when it comes to Joe Biden, who is, has the demeanor of a jellyfish, basically. If you've ever watched the movements of jellyfish at the end of a pier at night or something like that, maybe while enjoying a cool beverage of your choice with a flashlight, they just they move like Joe Biden. And they go until they bump into something, and then they turn and they go until they bump into something else. That's kind of Joe Biden. He walked away from the podium, not realizing that he left the microphone back there too. And he's talking to the nice lady over here who voted for him and couldn't wait to flatter him. And then he started responding to her question as though it was an Oprah town hall or something like that instead of a. Also, I don't know what room was that? Was it the state dining room or the East room? It looked like it was redone for like the Liberace movie Part 2. It looked kind of Las Vegas, a little Caesar Palace, a little Liberace. It was, I don't know what they did there. The gold curtains and the biggest candelabra you've ever seen. That's the plural of candelabra. It's candelabra is the plural. It's kind of, for just in case there are some Democrats listening, got to explain the English language and all that stuff. But it was the room looked a little gaudy, I think. It looked kind of like, I was wondering whether Imelda Marcos was going to come out instead of Joe Biden, but here comes Joe Biden, and he went to the podium, and he forgot the podium was over here, and the microphone was over here, and he's talking, and then he turns around, he's walking back to the podium and the microphone after he realized, and they kind of lost and had trouble with the transcript afterward, and so on. I don't think, you might be surprised to learn, I don't think he did such a great job. I don't think that, but the bar, again, was set so low that if he literally just didn't fall down, most of the media is going to give him an A for effort. They grade on a curve. President Trump, they set the bar very high, and he could never achieve success with them because they shouldn't be allowed to raise children. These people, you can only imagine how their children are going to turn out. Then Lunch Bucket Joe comes along, and the standard is so low, the bar is so low. How low is it? It is so low that they gave him an A for today. However, the press is getting very low marks. The White House press card getting very low marks. And even the Washington Post, Jennifer Rubin, they call her a Republican there. They don't, again, they use the words, but they don't know what they mean. And Jennifer Rubin gave Joe Biden an A or an A plus, just great. But she gave the press very low marks. I think because they were not ingratiating enough. Was that basically the thing? They should have been more grovelly, more ingratiating, something like that. And they weren't, but they will be. There were a number of questions that were not asked. Today, in hour number one today, I talked at some length because I think it's an important story about the first news story that Politico has done in a very, very long time. They had two people that apparently did work as reporters at one point, and they did the story on Hunter Biden. You know, Hunter Biden, he's the son of Joe Biden. And it's a story from 2018 during the Trump administration. And in Delaware, see, Hunter Biden was dating his brother Beau Biden's widow, Hallie, dating the widow. And I talked about it a couple of weeks ago. He was also simultaneously, kinky, might explain the Las Vegas thing, was dating Hallie's sister as well. This is, CNN doesn't know this yet because they don't follow the news over there. But it's a fun story in the Politico. Did we post the story? We probably should. You did post it?
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah, says Pierce. You posted on the Facebook and the Twitter?
Damn straight.
Okay, because we got Zuckerberg and Jack. I just call him Jack over at Twitter. He's an anti-American American. He's like the anti-American eagle. Oh, and then we had Jim Crow. You seen the Jim Crow thing? Do you think Joe Biden realizes that he was a Jim Crow senator and that his friends were Jim Crow? That Senator Robert Byrd was the exalted Cyclops of the White Knights of the KKK, and that Joe and Senator Byrd worked together. I interviewed Senator Byrd more than once, and I never asked him about the Klan thing, though. I was working for CNN at the time. Didn't get into the Klan thing. And Richard Russell, he worked with Richard Russell. They got a Senate building up on Capitol Hill named for Richard Russell, the longtime Georgia Democrat who was a segregationist, racist, and and all that good stuff. Like, you remember Joe Biden said he didn't want his kids when they were starting to bus in Delaware, said he didn't want his kids going to school in a racial jungle. That's Joe Biden. And then today, he's saying that the Republicans, because they don't want to allow mail-in ballots and not organ harvesting, but ballot harvesting. They already allow organ harvesting. But ballot harvesting, which is part of this, HR 1 thing to completely corrupt. It was so bad last time, they want to make it worse. They want to completely shatter confidence in our system for electing leaders by changing the law to the point where third world countries will laugh at us, will scoff at us the way that we conduct our elections. But Joe Biden said, "Oh, those are Republicans." He became angry, little outbursts every now and then, hitching up his pants and wagging his finger and yelling at people. And he said, "Those are Republicans. It's like, it's like Jim Crow. It's like make Jim Crow look like Jim Eagle. Because a crow is a smaller bird and an eagle is a big bird." And for him, I thought he might have gone with Jim Pterodactyl, just to talk about, highlight his experience, his seniority in the Congress and all that. But he was, he's a goof. The guy's a nut. But it doesn't matter. The press loves him. Again, no heart attack. They're good. They're going to give him an A. He did a great job. Everything I saw, everything I read. Chris Wallace on Fox News was talking about what a great job Joe Biden did. It was, for the most part, a sad affair for the United States of America. I mourn for my country. And waiting in the wings over here, we've got Kamala. That's like comma followed by la. That was the way that she explained it on The View, another hard-hitting interview that the Democrats have come to expect. And waiting in the wings, we got Kamala, and she can parrot the talking points and things, but we're really kind of up a bit of a creek here, aren't we, boys and girls? Yes, we are, and everyone else too, boys, girls, men, women, and other, because we're a big tent, we're an open thing, and the Democrats have kind of screwed up this whole, boy, girl, men, women thing. It's getting more complicated now. They didn't get into that, but one of the other things they didn't get to is the Hunter Biden story. The Hunter Biden story that I may revisit it tomorrow in some way. I want to see what other press organizations have done with this bombshell. It's a bombshell. All the bombshells during the Trump administration, none of which left craters. There are no craters. Oh, that call to that guy in Ukraine. Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because the reason that phone call was made to the guy in Ukraine by President Trump was to ask about the corruption of the Biden family. And Joe Biden Somehow in this story about Hunter Biden and his gun, one of the things that he said, and I'll give you a little refresher on the story in just a moment. One of the things that he said, Hunter Biden, when the police said, "Did you call your father on the way over?" He said, "I've never called my father and asked for anything." As long as you don't count that $83,300 a month no-show job with a Ukrainian gas company called Burisma, for which he did nothing. And he got one of his buddies, he's probably a good friend, he got one of his friends the same job. And his buddy also got $83,300 a month, I think 38 separate payments over the course of several years, consecutive months, $38,300 a month, right? Just extraordinary dollar figures. And the media looks at it and they say, well, what's the, he's doing a job. Hunter Biden was also the vice chairman of the board of Amtrak. I wish I had my train whistle now. Because he was a big train guy. When he was a kid, he had a little train, he'd scoot around the house. So naturally he became, and that was his familiarity with trains. That's why he became vice chairman of the board of Amtrak. It's like Pete Buttigieg becoming the secretary of transportation. Because his familiarity with transportation involved flying on Air Force Two to China to cut deals with the Chinese Communist Party officials and banking officials, which he then later lied about, said he didn't do anything there, but then we learned that he did. And so he got this deal in China with the business and Tony Bobulinski and the laptop and the emails, and Tony B let on to what's going on. And Joe Biden is big guy, and big guy gets 10% out of the China deal. It's a good operation. And I wonder if Joe Biden also got a piece of the Burisma deal, because that was a good job. I'd like to get a job like that. And I may, just born into the wrong family, I guess. But that'd be a good job to have. No-show job in Ukraine. He's never been to Ukraine, as far as we know. He did go to China, and the thing is, nobody's asked. Hey, you ever been to Ukraine? Nobody's asked. He did do one interview with ABC. Who was that woman that did the interview? And he said, "Ask it nicer." So she asked it nicer. It's good to be a Democrat. That's I'm fond of saying. Yeah, but the story in the Politico today, how it made it into the Politico, I don't know. But they found out, and it turns out they may have had the story in November of last year, possibly before the election, but they didn't go with it until today. And Michael Piercy, I didn't have the story. Michael Piercy pointed it out to me shortly before we went on the air this morning. And I said, what? Holy cannoli, why isn't this the biggest story and then I remembered, it's the Biden family and the American news media. But the story is an amazing story, and Politico did a remarkable job with it. And that's why Michael Piercy posted it on the Twitter, thanks to Jack Dorsey, and on the Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, Democrat billionaires crushing free speech in America, the oligarchs of America in the 21st century, in collusion with the Democrat Party, like industry in the 1930s and the 1940s, in the National Socialist German Workers' Party. Perhaps you've heard of them. They're not usually described that way, but they should be. Just another socialist workers' party. And they found out that Hunter Biden had, here's the story, Hunter Biden had purchased a 38 caliber revolver, and a kind of an old classic police special thing. I don't know the brand specific thing. And he had it in his pickup truck, so like it's under his seat or something like that. Maybe in the glove box. I don't know where it was in the pickup truck. And he was at home with his brother's widow, which, I come from a family of 6 brothers. And, Catholic school and all that stuff. And we always kind of had a code. You didn't have to say it out loud, but you don't date your brother's girlfriend, and you certainly don't date your brother's wife, because, what is this, Caligula's court, the fall of Rome just around the corner, for the love of Mike. And so he was dating his brother's widow, and Hallie, and he's dating his brother's widow's sister as well. Tuesday's getting a little greedy over there was Hunter. And he's got, he had this cocaine problem, the crack problem. He got kicked out of the Navy for having the cocaine problem, and multiple offenses in the Navy. And so his girlfriend, his brother's widow, Hallie, was nervous about him. And we don't know all of the details, but the pickup truck was there at the home that they were apparently sharing. She decided, Hallie, the widow, decided to go and search his pickup truck, which, my wife always searches my car. Doesn't your wife always search your car?
Constantly.
Yeah, constantly searching. Michael's wife constantly searching his car as well, because that's the sign of a healthy relationship, I think, when you're when your best girl is just one day say, hey, I think I'm gonna go search his car, see what I find. Maybe she thought she was gonna find a glass pipe and some rock, or, a little torch, something like that, who knows? Maybe late brother's badge, which he left in a rent-a-car while on a crack binge in Los Angeles, California with hookers, but pay no attention to that. The guy's got problems, okay? He's got problems, and it's, some people have problems. But the thing is, this is not about his problems. This is a story about a lot more than that. Because Hallie went and searched his car, found the .38 caliber revolver. And what did she do with it? What do you think she'd do? What would you do? What would your wife do if she found a .38 caliber revolver hidden away in your car, your fancy new car? And Mike has got a new car. He loves his new car. And where you got it? 6 months ago?
Yeah.
6 months ago. I've had my car for 5 years and 3 months. And Michael already has more miles on his car than I have on my car. I've had my car for 5 years and 3 months. I looked at it today. 10,900 miles I have on the car after more than 5 years. But that's me. That's another thing. That's living in the city. That's a 12 Dreams of Dr. Sardonicus reference there. But never mind that. So she finds the pistole. She finds the pistol. And what does she do? Does she confront Hunter and say, why is there a pistole in your pickup truck? No, she doesn't do that. Where is Hunter during this? He might have multiple cars. He was driving that Porsche. Remember that 4-door Porsche? So he might have a lot of cars, But she goes out, why would he keep the gun in the car he's leaving at home? I don't know. So she finds the gun, the pistol. And what does she do? She goes to what the people at Politico described as a nearby high-end grocery store. It was a high-end, because where the Bidens have been shopping for a long, long time. Why would they shop at a low-end grocery store? Why would they shop at a middling grocery store? Don't you know who they are? So she went over to the grocery store. Maybe she had to pick up some rutabagas or something at the same time. But she went over to the grocery store, went back in the alley, sitting on the alley with Sally, and she's got the pistol. And she goes to a garbage can behind their favorite grocery store, and there are surveillance cameras back there. Not so bright, this one. And she takes the pistol and she opens the garbage can. I don't know if it's a dumpster or whatever, garbage can. She throws the pistol in the garbage can, wrapped in something.
It's a grocery bag.
Wrapped in a grocery bag.
For the environment.
Because, it's to be environmentally friendly. Was it plastic or?
No, it was the reusable.
It was a reusable one. That's not how it's supposed to be reused. Dumping your husband's gun. And it may very well be illegal to just dispose of a gun. One of our brilliant listeners, tagged or Facebooked or tested or something today, said, you think it might be illegal to just take a pistol and throw it in the garbage can? Is that how you're supposed to properly dispense with a firearm? I think probably not. I think the answer to that is probably no. The story went on to say that when Hunter Biden went to buy the pistol, I think it was in October of 2018, went into the gun store, and one of the questions on the form is, you got a problem with drugs? You addicted to any drugs, anything like that? And he said, oh, no. You check, no. According to Politico, that could be a felony. But this is not a problem because, the ruling elites, the ruling class, the rules don't apply to them. That's why they're the ruling class. They're the rules, no rules. And we got rules, they don't have rules. Excuse me, we have rules. I don't want to be. But we have rules, they don't have rules. Rules don't apply to them. So now how this unfolded, there's still some gaps in the story here. But Hunter, I don't know if he wakes up in a stupor or if he comes home in the Porsche with a couple of strippers in the back or whatever the thing is. It's it's Hunter's life. And he says, hey, where's my pistol? And she says, I threw it in the garbage behind the grocery store that your family goes to. And he says, well, go get it. He says, and as you imagine, this conversation probably went pretty well. And he's like, not let's go get it, honey, sweetheart, darling, my brother's widow, Hallie, my beloved. Thanks for bringing your sister into the action. Know what I'm saying? But no, nothing grateful like that. He says, well, go get it. It's like Goodfellas or something. And so he sends her on her way to go get it. She goes to get the pistol to retrieve the pistol, and lo and behold, it's not there. It's not there. So this is a problem. This could be a problem. So now she's got to go home. Egg all over her face because she's been rummaging through the garbage cans behind the grocery store. So there could be egg and a variety of things all over her face. But she comes home and she says, "It's not there. It's gone. It's what's up with that?" And Cliff Clavin, what's up with that? And so she stand up, Cliff. So she's now the pistol's gone. Now what are you doing? He's like, this is my pistol. So, and the thing is, somebody finds the pistol. There's a serial number on it, unless she filed it off, with a Dremel or something. but there's a serial number. They're going to find that this is a pistol that had been bought by Hunter Biden and then tossed in a garbage can at the family's favorite grocery store. Not a good plan. No criminal instincts. This woman, Hallie, should have asked one of the Clintons or something what to do about it. They'd have some helpful tips in this regard, I think. So one thing leads to another, and gosh, where'd the gun go? And da. And then we have this story where apparently representatives, agents of the United States Secret Service arrive at the gun store, and they say, "We want to see the papers for the gun that Hunter Biden bought." And the gun store owner, smart guy, he thinks there's something fishy about this, and it's unclear because whether these are real Secret Service guys, because there's no record. The Politico asked the Secret Service, "You have any record of the Secret Service going to this gun store and asking about this?" And they say, "No, we have no record of this, and there will be no more for you. Now go away." And so because it's like gangster land, Democrats and the permanent bureaucracy, always on the side of the Democrat Party, based on our experience over the last 5 years, anyway. So it snowballs a bit. And now what's the deal? I do a little poking around because I still know a few people around here. And I'm hearing that maybe what we're talking about here is Joe Biden's personal private security, his personal private executive secretary, Miss Stein, and I'm sorry, getting a little Mel Brooks in here. And it is the Secret Service. Was it the Secret Service? The Secret Service says no. So what do we have here? The gun store owner, no scoop. Maybe he's seeing a badge and stuff, and he says it's the Secret Service. It could be Joe Biden. This is true. I checked into this. Joe Biden hired the head of his, when he was vice president, of course, for 8 years. He's not aware of that, but he was. He had a Secret Service detail, and he hired the head of his vice presidential Secret Service detail when he left the vice president's residence in the office. He hired the head of his detail to head up his personal security detail and pay him out of the millions and millions that the family's getting from China and Ukraine and from places like that. And the millions of dollars from the widow of the Putin ally mayor of Moscow. Look it up, it's all true. And so we don't know, but it might be, we don't know. It might be the retired Secret Service guys who are now in the employ of the Biden family, providing private security after he left the public office. And they show up with their retired badge, your police officer, local or federal. When you retire, you still get a badge that says retired on it somewhere, something like that. But maybe they didn't look so close, and hey, Secret Service, you hold up the thing, and we're good to go, Secret Service. But the gun store owner, he gets a hold of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, a very lengthy title, and a great name for a convenience store, as everybody knows. And he turns over the paperwork to the ATF, as we call them for short. And so now we've got apparently the Secret Service involved. We've got the ATF involved. But wait, we're not done yet, because the Delaware State Police were involved throughout the whole thing. Delaware State Police received a Freedom of Information Act request from Politico last year, apparently in November, and they were denied. And that the election was in November of last year, you see, and Politico didn't run anything on the story back then. The Blaze had a piece of the story from October, right? Was it of 20? It was
October last year.
Yeah, okay.
But it wasn't sourced.
Yeah, but it wasn't very well sourced, and it wasn't as thoroughly reported as, honestly, the Politico story was. It was a pretty well reported story, except it opened all kinds of cans of worms that they're, I don't know if they're pursuing, but I would expect them not to. And of course, as journalists, they're not going to win any lucite blocks reporting stories that are detrimental to the welfare of the Biden family, because that's not how the lucite block industry works, right? So then wait, there's more. This is 2018 again, all right? And the FBI then became involved. So we got this whole chicken noodle soup, but we got everybody but John Brennan and the CIA. I think maybe we'll find out the NSA had satellites overhead or something. But the FBI is there in the alley. The Secret Service is there in the alley. Hey, did you call your father on the way over? One of the federal agencies asked him. I never call my father for anything. I just get these jobs in Ukraine and China, and I fly over on Air Force too, but I never ask him for anything. He's a very generous man. The vice chairman of the board of Amtrak, and these are pretty good jobs in the scheme of things. You have those on your resume, they probably look pretty good. A lot of money, get big fancy cars, date all kinds of strippers and widows, and widows' sisters and all this stuff, living the vida, as they say. And so we've got now, and that's James Comey. You see, J. Edgar Comey is the FBI director in 2018. He's too busy setting up President Trump and members of the Trump administration. We're still waiting for that John Durham investigation, aren't we? He's a special counsel, and I'm still holding out hope. Ever the optimist, maybe just a fool. We'll have to wait and see, because really the wheels are coming off all over the place when it comes to our government and good stewardship of various government agencies, particularly law enforcement and intelligence agencies, which have proved to be extremely and extraordinarily corrupt over the last 5 years since President Trump came down the escalator. The news media has no interest in any of these stories because we don't really have a legitimate fourth estate, more of a fifth column, as we're fond of saying. So this story blows up, and then the Politico asks Secret Service, and they say, if you have no comment, comments Politico. And the FBI, well, they have James Comey. It was James Comey over there. And they got this thing where maybe felonies were committed, lying on the form, maybe illegal to throw the gun in the garbage can. It's a terribly sordid and tawdry story because of all the kind of soap opera stuff in the Biden family. And it opens up several cans of worms, if you will. And even though it appears that Politico was working on the story at least back in November of last year, possibly prior to Election Day, nothing emerged. And who knew about this story with no leaks from the FBI about the Biden family saga, this craziness with the gun and the widow and the garbage can and the lying on the forms. No charges, of course, just like no charges for any Democrat anywhere. You know, the FBI people, they altered documents, the lawyer, you get 30 minutes probation. It's 45 minutes of home detention and you're good to go. And it's an amazing thing to see, to witness what's going on in our country these days. And this is kind of a prime example. We had a great call today from one of our great listeners who I've been talking to for years. I mean, he's called in back to being on the nighttime, maybe even the Sunday afternoon show. Radu is his name, R-A-D-U. And he's from Romania, the famous dictator there, Nicolae Ceausescu, who with his horrible wife, eventually, I made a passing reference today, they were eventually caught physically by the Romanian populace, who beat them to death. They beat them both to death and threw them into a stairwell. And then people for a day or so came down and beat them with clubs and chairs and things like that, because they didn't serve the country very well. But Radu told his story about escaping communism. You know, Melania Trump also escaped communism as a young woman. Went on to have a really great life in the West and in the United States of America, First Lady. She never got a magazine cover. 4 years as First Lady, was constantly attacked, assailed, assaulted. Most beautiful First Lady we've ever had. Jackie Kennedy Onassis, Bouvier Kennedy Onassis, was an attractive woman, you know, if you're into that sort of thing. But honestly, Melania Trump made her look like, the back of the house help. You'd pat her down for silverware on the way out the door if you had Melania as First Lady over here. And it just took a brutal beating from the phony baloney news media, Melania Trump did, because were it not for double standards, liberals would have no standards at all. And the media are, of course, liberals. I think that would be overwhelmingly and corrupt, not fair and honest. So this is a great story. It's a great big story, and that may be a slightly long way of saying that didn't come up at the none of that came up at the thing, and it broke just today. You'd think that the White House would be like, holy cow, this Politico story broke today. We could be in deep when it comes to the big White House press conference, our first one as president, and possibly their last one as president. And I see my sunglasses are bulging in my pocket over here. But that just to be clear, and it's a jacket pocket through now, and that's not a concern for them, because they've got this loyal and faithful and subservient press corps at the White House that ask questions like, "You're so great and so wonderful. You're so dignified and you're so revered," that people are flooding to our border from countries that are not beep-hole countries. They're not beep-hole countries because there are no beep-hole countries. There are just countries with, what did we have? The border guru said that they were fleeing two tornadoes, right? Two tornadoes. Former member of Congress, Cedric Richmond, said they were fleeing two tornadoes. That's why everybody's showing up at our border. This is what he said. He's an adult. And a senior government official and a long time now former member of the House of Representatives. They were fleeing 2 tornadoes, and he didn't catch himself and say, well, I sound like an idiot saying that all these people are fleeing 2 tornadoes. Must have been really like sustained tornadoes. And then somebody else, who was it that said,
Psaki.
oh, Jen Psaki said they were fleeing 2 hurricanes, right? 2 hurricanes. And it was Nancy Pelosi, I think, who said they were fleeing climate change. That's why people are, the agenda is everything, and they're nothing without it when it comes to these people. So they're fleeing climate change because they're not fleeing socialism, which the Democrats are selling here. So you can't say they're fleeing, terrible, tyrannical, useless, corrupt socialist regimes like we're growing here. You have to make something up. So their agenda is, they're going to say they're fleeing countries without gun control, because they're not going to have gun control here. It's an amazing time to be alive, I've got to say. And when you're a Democrat all the way, little West Side Story. And they know what to expect when they have a presidential press conference with this stupefyingly incompetent, dundering fool that we have as a president of the United States. He gets a heap and helping of adoration from one fake reporter to the next, who spend time praising him. A little saccharin goes a long way around there. And they didn't call on Peter Doocy, the one reporter in the White House press corps, because he might ask a question that would require some brain power to answer. Joe Biden also got confused a couple of times. He drifted off a couple of times, and like the Constitution, and then the other thing, like that kind of stuff like that. And it's I'm getting a signal over here from Michael Piercy, because I haven't really even started. Good thing I have a 3-hour radio show tomorrow. It should be a 5-hour radio show tomorrow, but they only give me 3, so that's all I can get. Listen, I'm just scratching the surface on this. As you know, there's going to be more to get to. I will stay on the story, even if the Politico doesn't. Now, I know the Washington Post and CNN are not busy pursuing the story. It's no big deal. They didn't, the New York Post published all the stories about Tony Bobulinski, about the laptop and the repair guy, the sight impaired laptop, computer repair guy in Delaware, who had the laptop. And we got the emails because he knew that the federal government was going to cover it up, and they were. We've got this ongoing investigation into the Biden family and money laundering, international money laundering. The news media even today is saying, oh, they're looking into tax problems related to international money laundering. And there's a grand jury that's been impaneled. And Joe Biden is big guy in the emails who gets a 10% cut. And that didn't come up today, and it didn't come up yesterday, and it hasn't come up in 2 months as president. And it came up only once during the campaign, and he dismissed the reporter that asked the question. So, this is why the old saying, it's good to be a Democrat, certainly in Washington. So just scratching the surface. And there are lots of big things to talk about, of course, like the state of our country and our rights and free speech and the First Amendment and free practice of religion and the lockdowns because of the WMAL and you can't go to church, you can't go to synagogue, but we can have big LGBT of color rallies in New York where everybody's packed in because that's social justice, still making quotation marks with my fingers, and all of that. So I'm being told, I think, that I've run up the clock, and I barely had to for this portion of our festivities this evening. And I have barely had a chance to take a sip of my beverage too. And now with that, and without any further ado, this is Michael Piercy. He's very concerned about the, he's very concerned about the whole thing. Michael Piercy, executive producer of our humble radio broadcast. And Michael and I, and Victor Pusateri, who of course took the place of Victoria Glakis, who's moved on, we hope, to greener pastures. And hey, wait, there is that Victoria. Victoria's dialed in, I think. No. And it looks like it. And the 3 of us, I just want to point out that the 3 of us do a 3-hour radio show every day, and we need more. We need more time, but it's all they'll give us. And then we have to get lunch, or something. But we do a 3-hour, and there were 3 of us, so that's 1 person per hour for those who are doing math at home. And we like to analogize our staffing to the staffing at National Panhandler Radio, where they have what is the show called? Morning Sedition, I think it's called. Morning Sedition at National Panhandler Radio. where they have a staff of 23.
Yes.
23 people. And one of the shows has a chef. They have a chef on staff because they're suckling on the taxpayer teat. And the Corporation for Public Broadcasting gets $500 million a year to fund the Democrat Party network across the station in every hamlet, in every nook and every cranny, in every holler in America. There's a panhandler station peddling the Democrat Party message every day. And the Republicans on Capitol Hill are too stupid to go after the funding for this Democrat Party network because, you know, there's the stupid party and the evil party. I choose the stupid party. That's the way I want to go.
All right, now to begin my section.
And then to begin, and here comes Michael Chris.
For the love of God, take a drink. That's what everyone's saying online.
Oh, I'm sorry.
If they can't drink until you've had a drink.
Oh, for God's sake. Well, listen, you know, as I understand it, for the most part, you're not driving. So drink with alacrity, be Irish, you know, go. You can still slur the Irish because they're used to it and they don't care. And they know it's true. So, and I'm half Irish, so I can do that too.
And we've got someone queued up, but just before we start, can I pontificate with you about the English language for a second?
Mm-hmm.
If Joe Biden says that the new Republican voting thing makes Jim Crow look like Jim Eagle.
Yeah, Jim Eagle.
Doesn't that mean that the new thing is better? Because if it was worse, wouldn't it make Jim Crow look like Jim Butterfly or something?
Well, he thinks that they're expanding. Now, keep in mind that, you know, making it bigger, like now it's completely absurd, of course, to keep our elections the way that we've always done our elections is Jim Crow turning into Jim Eagle or Jim Pterodactyl. Or...
He didn't say turning into, he said makes Jim Crow look like Jim Eagle.
Oh, okay. All right.
I am a genius.
No, see, I got you. Okay, now I got you.
But
that's true. That's good enough.
Our first question this evening comes from someone we've had some experience with.
Wait.
It's Sylvia.
So wait, I got to do a little. There's Sylvie. There's Sylvie right there. And Sylvie, we love Sylvie. I don't want to use last names, you know, for security reasons.
The last name is in Waldorf.
Yeah, that's right. Sylvie in Waldorf. And Sylvia is, of course, hey, there you go.
The last name is Pinot Grigio.
Pinot Grigio. Very fashionable. And of course, chairman of the board of the Real Housewives of WMAL on the Facebook. I think it's an invitation only thing, though, isn't it? Real Housewives.
Yes, you know, it's all about Chris Plante and all about the WMAL programming. So thanks for having me today. And
very exclusive. Wonderful. Well, it's great to see you.
It's a great virtual politics and a pint. And my question is, Chris, that I keep hearing that President Trump may run in 2024, but until or unless the atrocity of the 2020 steal is corrected, I don't think that we'll ever see fair elections again in the United States. And the Democrats cheated. You know, they know they cheated. They know how to steal elections now. So, you know, will we ever see a fair election, or are we Burkina Faso? And also, after you answer the question, could you indulge us in your best Joseph Goebbels accent, please?
I think I can do that. Now, let me see. That's Sylvie in Waldorf, is technically her last name, chairman of the board. And president of the Real Housewives of WMAL. Now, let me talk about this. Many tens of millions of Americans are utterly disenchanted and disappointed with the election of 2020. We know, we have established based on affidavits and court documents and testimony on Capitol Hill and hearing rooms that a great many people witnessed what the term that was settled on was irregularities in Pennsylvania, in Wisconsin, in Michigan, in Nevada. A great many questions raised. Maybe we should have John Durham look into these things. You may notice that the Republicans in Congress are not bending over backward or breaking their backs to get to the bottom of everything that happened. And a great many people feel that that you can never trust our system of electing people again. And are we now Burkina Faso, which, as I think everyone knows, is home to my favorite national capital, Ouagadougou. Ouagadougou is the capital of Burkina Faso, and it's fun to say and to spell as well, but I won't do that right now. My second favorite capital is Mongolia. It's Ulaanbaatar. Ulaanbaatar is a good capital too. And let me say that neither one of those capitals right now, in as much as I'm aware, are occupied by thousands of military troops, as is the capital of the United States, Washington, D.C., under the Biden junta. And I was seeing in the news today that some of the fencing, the outer perimeter of the fencing, is coming down around the Capitol. And we're supposed to be, I guess, greatly relieved by this or impressed by this. And the news media is quite blithely and casually saying, because there is no discernible threat to the Capitol. Nor was there when they put up the fences, but they made up the pretext for that, and that's what they did. Now, can we ever have confidence in our elections again? Let me say that this HR 1 that the Democrats are pushing through Congress right now is designed to really demolish confidence. If you haven't lost confidence in our elections yet, they're looking to codify in law and to allow ballot harvesting for just to name one thing. And where you have people, when there are these great stories, more things like Project Veritas and James O'Keefe went up to Ilhan Omar's district in Minnesota and has people on camera coming out of apartment buildings proudly with bundles of ballots in Ilhan Omar's district. And there's this kind of Somali organization in her district that was, they had dashboards and cars filled with ballots. They had, they were bragging about it on camera, how they're doing this. And somehow 60 Minutes has no interest in this story, but HR 1 would, the Democrats are seeking to codify in law their ability to do that, and also mail-in voting, which is not allowed in a great many countries, and a whole lot of other things, same-day registration and all of these things, which are a series of steps designed, of course, to shatter public confidence in the American system of electing presidents in particular. Now, you said the first time, I think you said the first time the election was stolen. You know, the John F. Kennedy election of 1960, famously, Joe Kennedy Sr., Daddy Kennedy, he, the bootlegger who made all the money that the family's still living off of to buy their cocaine and whiskey and hookers and the blue dot and all that stuff. They famously bought the election of 1960 for John F. Kennedy, defeating Richard Nixon, who always believed that he had legitimately won the election. And at the last minute, Joe Kennedy was buying off the unions in West Virginia, buying off the Daily Machine in Chicago, where I grew up. And that's why I say first election stolen. I kind of say, I grew up with a lot of Democrats in the Chicago Machine and the Daily Machine who bragged about the dead showing up to vote. And I have a brother who worked with an uncle many years ago now, going around signing up tombstones in Chicago, no kidding, and making sure that they showed up to vote on election day. The Democrats have a long and storied history of stealing elections, and they've got all kinds of methods and systems and techniques. And now in the age of the computer and the internet, it opens up a number of opportunities for them. And if they do away with the filibuster, they'll give the bums rush to a whole bunch of legislation that will make it easier for them to destroy the legitimacy of our elections. And I kind of look to Republicans. We can't look to the news media to work on these, on restoring confidence. I look to the Republicans on Capitol Hill, and I don't see them doing a lot of. Now, whether it was established that the election, that there was enough chicanery on the part of the Democrats in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, in Wisconsin, in Arizona, Nevada, and Arizona was in there too, and Georgia, whether that was enough to tip the balance of the election, we'd have to have a 30-year investigation and then get a 600-page report dropped on a Friday afternoon that nobody would read to get to the bottom of it. And honestly, I've got to say, I think we're never going to get really to the bottom of a lot of what happened. And I don't think it's been conclusively proved, as in a court of law and so on, because the courts have been very disappointing in this process as well, including the Supreme Court. Are we Ouagadougou? Are we Burkina Faso? Burkina Faso's got a couple of positive things that we don't have. No troops on the street of the capital. I should go check on this because they might have troops on the street of the capital. But this is the first time in my lifetime that we've had, and I grew up in Chicago, where corruption is revered, where stealing elections is expected. And again, the buying Illinois and West Virginia in 1960 for John F. Kennedy always irked Richard Nixon, of course. And he decided, well, I know it was stolen. The great line from Joseph P. Kennedy Sr. was, they were afraid on election day that they were going to lose. And they were asking him to shovel more money into West Virginia in particular. And he said, hey, this is the line, this is the quote. He said, I'm not paying for a landslide here, right? That's a famous line from Joe P. Kennedy in 1960. I'm not paying for a landslide here, because he only had about $300 million. And they have less than that now, because they've all just been living off of it, 3 generations from shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves. Can we have confidence in our elections? And is President Trump going to run again? I think what he said is that, and this is probably the smart play, I think, is you want to let the, whatever the Republican process is play out until we get to election year. And one of the things Joe Biden, one of the tough questions from what's her name at CNN, one of the most embarrassing questions of the day, only one of the most embarrassing questions of the day. What's her name? The CNN.
Caitlin Collins?
Caitlin Collins. It was Caitlin Collins. Said, I mean, he's been in office for about 2 months. Are you running again in 4 years? And will Kamala Harris be your running mate? Can we start campaigning for you now? And I think it was CNN and Caitlin Collins announcing the official media, the open of the Joe Biden re-election campaign today because of that. So, I mean, look, you live with disappointment. You do live with disappointment, and sometimes you're very disappointed. And all that is necessary for the triumph of evil is that good men do nothing. And there's a lot of that going on. We're going to need Republicans to step up, and there are maybe a few, maybe Ted Cruz, and you pursue it. This is going to go down in history, and some people are always going to believe this, and other people are always going to believe that. And has it been proved conclusively? Some things have. Has it been proved that the scales were tipped completely? And there are all kinds of bizarre things, like Joe Biden never campaigned, and he got millions more votes than Barack Obama, more votes than any candidate in US history. President Trump got 9 million more votes than he had 4 years ago. But Joe Biden got more than that without ever campaigning. Isn't that amazing? And why didn't those Democrats show up for Barack Obama? Racists. Why didn't those Democrats show up for Hillary Clinton? Sexists, misogynists. The only possible answers to that. So, I mean, beyond that, I don't know what to say, except, then we were talking about Rod Rosenstein a couple of days ago, the Deputy Attorney General. When was that? Day before yesterday? Who is he's the one that wanted to wear a wire on President Trump, because it's not like the deep state was out to get him or anything. But Rod Rosenstein, number 2 guy. Remember him? He's got no chin, and he is a melding, a combination of Barney Fife and Joseph Goebbels. He's got the Goebbels glasses and stuff, and he's and really around here, a lot of these government officials should be wearing armbands and have suits with epaulettes, because Rouse. We were doing a little of that today when the press was being ushered out of Biden's event yesterday at the White House. Rouse, with dogs barking. They brought in the German shepherds, Adolf and Eva. You comply. It's and Michael does a lot of accents around the shop too. He does. We do Russians, Soviets, Vladimir Putin. Comrade Barak, I will communicate this sensitive classified information to Comrade Vladimir. Remember when Obama was whispering to his pal Dmitry Medvedev, who was the front man for Vladimir Putin? He was a puppet and all that. But we all grew up with the German accents, and I know nothing, and all of this stuff. But Rod Rosenstein, I think you don't see him talk much. I said he can't shut me up. But I think when Rod Rosenstein talks, he does it with a slight German accent. What?
Thank you, Sylvie. Thank you.
No, Sylvie, I'm sorry. I apologize.
And we have another call. Another question from David Miner, I believe is our next question.
David Miner. Are we reading the question from David Miner?
Apparently, David is not there, so we're going to jump.
Dave's not there.
Hi, I am here.
There's Dave. Dave's not home. Dave's here. There he is.
Hey, Chris.
Hey,
Hey, I
Dave.
got a question for you. So how much longer if you were a betting man, how much longer would you say Sleepy Joe's going to stay in office before Kamala or whatever she says replaces him? Do you think it's going to last 2 years so she can meet that constitutional threshold, or do you think it'll be quicker than that? And thank you.
I think trying to wait for the midterms, it'd be a little embarrassing to not make it as far as the midterms. He seems to me to be kind of physically fit, even though he's really not mentally fit. He's, and he does this thing where everywhere he goes, he runs out like this, because the crowd looks wonderful from here. You all look wonderful from here. He likes to run and show, and then running up the steps of the ramp of Air Force One last Friday when he fell down 3 times and the face plant and the thing. I think that he's probably physically fit enough to do that. Now the media And the deep state, the Justice Department and the FBI are probably not looking to wear a wire on him and try to ensnare him and trot out the 25th Amendment to declare him incompetent so that he's removed from office. I'm guessing that's probably not happening. Now I kind of screwed it up here. I want to show you my screensaver, which I'll do in a minute. I took a picture. I got to wait for the thing to go down. But I've got a picture of Joe Biden as my screensaver. Do I think he'll make it 2 years? It's anybody's bet. I go to Las Vegas for the odds on this because, again, I think he's physically okay. I just don't think he's mentally there. And this may be his last press conference for a very long time. And even when he performs horribly, as I believe he did today, you're going to read in the papers and see on the television that he did great. So the public message is going to be, he did great. And if they repeat it again and again, it kind of becomes the truth, even though it's not true. And I think he's got to try to make it through the midterms. And I'm not sure really there's a constitutional requirement. I could be wrong about this. You mentioned a constitutional requirement to make it 2 years before Kamala could become president. If he were physically incapacitated, she could become president. And he has also talked about saying that if they have a disagreement, it was a very bizarre thing that he said. If they have a disagreement, he said, what was the phrasing he used? That he would like conjure up, he'd invent, he would pretend he had an ailment and he would step down and Kamala would become president. I go with Kamala because that's what she said. Like the punctuation mark, comma, it's what she said on The View, followed by law. Do I think he'll make it 2 years? He's going to try real hard. That's what I think. I know people, no kidding, I know people who already think it's the internet. The internet's a terrible place. Who think that he's already been replaced with, like a replacement, like in the movie Dave. That his eyes are a different color. I don't think that's the case. I think he's had a lot of plastic surgery, and he had plastic surgery just last year. I heard that from the live source. Before the thing today, I think he was like almost 10 minutes late. I think he was getting quick Botox and B12 booster shot and taking his Prevagen, for brain health. And he came out and got confused several times anyway. And here's another question for you, or a question for you. It kind of probably makes no difference. Would it be better to have Kamala in the White House? She's staying right across the street in Blair House and hasn't moved into so she's close. She's close by just in case. She hasn't moved into the vice president's residence, which is being redone for her because it's not nice enough for her. But I think she will be the next president of the United States whenever that happens. Start your stopwatches. I'm sorry. Good.
And now we have Ron DeFore.
Oh, wait a minute.
Question.
Ron DeFore. Here's Ron DeFore. I was, hey, Ron, how are you? It's great. I was saying today that Joe Biden was going to leave the press conference early because, today's episode of Hazel is starting.
Ron's muted.
Oh, Ron's muted.
Now I'm unmuted.
There you are.
Yeah, right. My dad, Mr. B. Hey, Chris, seriously, I'd like your very professional opinion as a communicator as to what the conservative movement can do to expand its reach. Now, I love the idea of expanding your show to 5 hours, getting more radio stations, and expanding your audience. That's one way. But beyond that, I mean, is it getting tens of millions of people to use Parler? Do we need billionaire conservatives to build our own search engines? I mean, because we're never going to be able to penetrate the mainstream media, as you well know and teach us every day. What is it at the 30,000-foot level over time? What is it that the conservatives can do to break through our communications barrier?
Yeah. Well, honestly, I always say, as you know, that's really our biggest challenge is that the media universe is, while it's ever expanding, is the Democrat Party and the left now, and the left, they're not liberals, they're the left. I grew up with liberals. These people are not liberals. These people are the left. Today's Democrat Party is the left for real, the international left. The riots, the Antifa, the masks, the gang activity in the streets, and they've made it into the corridors of power in Washington and the hallways of Congress with the squad. And, you know, these a lot of these people are truly radical. And the ones that didn't start out as truly radical, even the Pelosi's of the world, are really being radicalized by the party. And we're up against it. We're up against it like never before. Now, and it's one of the reasons that so many millions of people loved President Trump, because at long last, somebody punched back and and he used Twitter to incredible effect, to bypassing the media. You know, the media used to complain during the Ronald Reagan days that Ronald Reagan would bypass the media. He would try to bypass the media. It was a much more difficult thing to do then. And I don't know where the conservative billionaires are. There are conservative billionaires. The Democrats seem to have all of the influential billionaires, all of the oligarchs in charge of Twitter and Facebook and CNN and Time Warner. And, you know, they're all benefiting from and profiting from all of this, obviously. And they hang out in the Hamptons and Martha's Vineyard, and they casual conversations that we might refer to as, conspiracies, conspiring, not conspiracy theories, but actual conspiracies. And I've got to say, we're in a really tough place as a country, and that's because the conservative movement is we've been back on our heels for years and years, really for a couple of generations. Ronald Reagan was a miracle when he came along because nobody thought he could win. And he was just berated and derided every day by the news media. I saw that up close and personal for a variety of reasons. And he was treated brutally as well, and very, very unfairly. I'd like to see, and here's, you mentioned creating your own media universe. President Trump is now talking about establishing a media presence of his own, which he hasn't defined, but I envision something like, he used Twitter to such great effect, something like a Twitter, and of course we had a competitor, we have a Parler as a competitor to Twitter, but then they're shut down by the Google oligarchs, and really a parallel universe, and we kind of live in parallel universes already, sadly, tragically, but you really have to create your own infrastructure because the left has information dominance in the United States of America, and it goes beyond the media control and the internet control. It goes to education on college campuses and the teachers' unions, and it has, there are all kinds of old sayings attributed to various people from Lenin to Stalin and beyond. Give me the children and I'll give you the future. And we know that our educational system has become toxic and is poisoning the minds of our children. You send perfectly rational children off to college and they come home hating their parents and hating the United States of America. And Ronald Reagan said we're never more than one generation away from tyranny, and we're in a very tough spot right now, and it's a long haul thing. I think that billionaires need to step up. I think we conservatives need our own platforms. The left really objects to our having our own platforms. They do everything they can to shut them down because they're not free speech people. And Hillary Clinton, you may remember her thesis paper in college after working with Saul Alinsky. Her thesis paper was called "There Is Only the Fight." And when you're dealing with people who believe, and you should never marry anybody that has a thesis paper called "There Is Only the Fight," and they've got Bill Clinton now with Kamala Harris about empowering women to do what they haven't said. And we should ask Willie Brown and Monica Lewinsky to see what they're talking about here. But
they should have counter programming.
We're really up against it, and people complain about Fox. Look, we've also got we've got Newsmax. Thank God for Christopher Ruddy and Newsmax, because they're doing a great job. We've got One America News Network, OAN or OANN, and they're at the White House. I think it was a Washington Post headline today. Trump let OAN into the White House. Now it's Biden's problem, and they're going to look to crush free speech. And how we win this fight, I don't know, but I know that we need to engage. And Biden also today used the old Chinese proverb, sometimes attributed to Mao, but it predates Mao. Each march of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. It's interesting. I'm sure the Chinese communists were pleased that he used this ancient Chinese proverb, and maybe they'll renew their contract with Hunter Biden's company to make good on it. But honestly, the fight is on the planet Earth. It's good against evil. It's darkness against light. It's liberty and freedom against tyranny and slavery. The Chinese communists are really making a push in Africa and Latin America. They're making great progress. And the Democrat Party here is, not their enemy, not their enemy.
All right, our next question comes from Amy Chalmers. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Hello.
Hello. Hey, Chris Plante, how are you?
I'm just swell. Couldn't be better. How about you?
Good. This is my Goomba dad, Frank.
Goomba
it's
dad,
actually
Frankie
his
Frank.
Goomba. Am I allowed to say that? Goomba?
Yeah. Here you are.
Okay, good.
Yeah, you got a trunk in your car big enough for 5 guys?
Absolutely. It's actually his question, so I'm going to let him ask the question.
Okay, good.
Yeah, Chris,
Yes, sir.
Chris, a group of us vlog away a lot. And one of the questions that came up is this: why doesn't the media call what's taking place at the southern border a non-military invasion of this country? Because that was the perfect scenario one time. Was what would you do if 10,000 people came to the border and just started crossing? What would the military do? Well, it's happening. Why don't they call it an invasion?
Well, I think you probably know the answer to that. And it's because our media is not, we really, honestly, it's a tragic thing. Again, I was a legitimate journalist, a news media guy for 17 years. But I had to leave 15 years ago because I could no longer with a straight face tell people what I did for a living when I was out and about and out in the town. Why don't they call it an invasion? Because they use the language that is issued by the Democratic Party. And if the White House spokesperson, Colonel Klebb from the movie From Russia with Love, with her gasoline colored hair, if she says it's not a crisis, then the news media says it's not a crisis, right? And they take it's so shameless and it's so obvious at this point that they take their marching orders, they take their talking points, they use the language issued to them by the federal government when it's controlled by Democrats. And when it's controlled by President Trump, they take their language, they use literally the words, the terms, the phrases that are issued, the news media, the Washington Post, the New York Times, CNN, ABC News. And you go through these news organizations and you find that they're filled with career political Democrats who are happy to carry on the dinner party circuit in Washington and Georgetown and Martha's Vineyard and in New York is all about and they're all making out great. They're all making out like bandits, of course, financially and so on. But they take their marching orders from the party, capital T, capital P. And there's really no other conclusion you can come to if you're paying attention for an extended period of time. They're not looking to be fair. They're not looking to be the final check in our brilliant system of checks and balances. They're not really, they're not playing the role of the fourth estate as envisioned by the founders. They take their marching orders from the party and they use the language issued by the party. When the Republican Party is in charge, you've got a very aggressive press corps that pursues every angle of every story very aggressively, very hostilely. But when Democrats are in charge, in case you haven't been paying attention, I have for a long time. I grew up in this environment. My household, my grandfather came home from World War I and went into radio. My father came home from World War II, worked for U.S. News and World Report. He died when I was a baby. My stepfather was a CBS News correspondent for 52 years, just retired a couple of years ago. We had Walter Cronkite over to the house when I was a little kid. I hung out here and there, at least, in newsrooms. My mother was a television host and show host in Milwaukee, Wisconsin when I was a kid. She was on radio when I was a kid. I grew up third generation of this, and nobody has ever seen anything like what we're witnessing now. And they use the language, the terms, the phrases that are issued by the Democrat Party. That's a horrible thing to have to say, but all of the empirical evidence, all of the available evidence supports what I just said. Without deviation, a little bit of Fox News and a little bit of this and a little bit of that. So do you have a different mask on every time you show?
That was the bit.
That's it, the one coming off at a time?
Yeah.
You had 12 masks. Did you come in with 12 masks?
Yeah.
That's Edgar Allan Poe, The Mask of the Red Death. We're getting to the last one later on, I think, Mask of the Red Death. All right, so more.
Our next question is from Rob Young.
Rob Young. Rob Young, you're on Candid Camera.
Hey there. Thanks for having me on. I've got a frustrating situation here. I think we're all suffering. We've had a year of sacrifice, a year of compromise. We've been social distancing. Michael's worn 3 masks already. Look at that compromise. We've restaurants, schools, the whole bit. And now these people, God bless them, they're suffering, but they just walk in and a high percentage of them have the Wuhan. Where is the outrage from the Republicans? It's insane.
Well, that is a very important question, and it goes to a lot of what we're talking about today. You know, honestly, this question has been a regular question for as far back as I can remember, and I remember stuff pretty well. Where were the Republicans when Ronald Reagan was trying to get his agenda through? They showed up from time to time, but these Republicans there, and we know, we've heard it all 1,000 times before. They're always playing by Marquis of Queensberry rules, and the Democrats are playing with a jihadi-like bloodlust, swarming the walls and coming over with scimitars and knives in their teeth, and they're here to kill. They're here to destroy. LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson, he famously said that there's an old saying that politics is war by other means, and LBJ famously said, politics isn't war by other means, politics is war. And Republicans never play it that way. Republicans they're always there, still trying to be polite. And when you get somebody who's aggressive, like President Trump, the infrastructure, and just even Ted Cruz, who's not nearly as aggressive as President Trump, the entire, because they have information dominance, which is something that an invading army looks for, information dominance. If you had a military invasion of Cuba during the Castro days, there's still Raul Castro in power there now. But when you invade a country, there are several steps that you take in order to take over. Going back to Roman days, honestly, you invade. Now they didn't have radio stations and TV stations and newspapers and no Roman days, but they had stone tablets. It took much longer and they're very expensive. But what you do is you go in and you take over the radio stations. First thing, you take over the television stations, you take over the newspapers, and then you take over the system of educating children. And that's the old Lenin, Stalin, whoever it was, some attribute it to Hitler, but I think it predates Hitler. Give me the children and I'll give you the future. And the left has been executing a plan over the course of decades here in the United States in faculty lounges and beyond. And they enjoy this information dominance. And we're really, I'm not just talking about the United States either. I'm talking about humankind. Again, my father fought in World War II. And today I was talking about my friend, Jim Robinson, and I said his father was in World War II, said he was in the Philippines for 3 years. He was in the Army. He called this afternoon to straighten me out. His father was in the Marine Corps. And I apologize to Jim and the Marine Corps. He was in the Marine Corps. And, we come from generations of Americans. Again, my grandfather in World War I, after my father died when I was a child, moved in with my grandfather, the World War I guy, who taught us to cook. We still, in my family, call them Army helmet eggs, where you cook the bacon in the skillet and then you throw the eggs in, with the bacon fat, because he taught us that's how they used to, in their Army helmets and their doughboy helmets in France in World War I. Then they, from farmhouses and things, they cook bacon and then they throw the eggs in. But these are American traditions. Now, go and ask the people at the border, what are your traditions? What does your family do? What has your family done historically to stand up against tyrants, against fascism, against imperialism, against socialism, manning the Fulda Gap, and the Berlin Wall, and Vietnam and Korea, and of course none of those traditions exist when it comes to the people. And I know a lot of people from south of the border. I live in a neighborhood with a lot of people from south of the border. I have a lot of friends, people from south of the border. My father's name was Orte. He was from the Basque countries and the Basque country and the Pyrenees Mountains. And I was Christopher Ortega until I was 5. I got nothing against anybody. And I think that we're, in many ways, quite fortunate south of the border, since the Democrats have opened up the gates, that we have Christian, Catholic, family-oriented, work ethic people with a Western language and so on, as opposed to Europe, which has other issues for a variety of geographic and historical reasons that we don't suffer from. So, but the the Democrats are looking to accelerate, and let me say this also. I don't mind the idea of I really don't, of the world evolving naturally and the continents coming together culturally and all that. As long as it happens naturally in a kind of a natural fashion and in an orderly fashion, and it's not like Hispanic people are terrible people or something, but we have an immigration system which is very generous and always has been. My grandparents and great grandparents came through that immigration system. Piercy's, we don't know where his family came from, but it's hard to say, maybe a spaceship or something. But why don't the Republicans step up and call it an invasion? Why don't we've been asking this question for so many years, for so many decades, that I just don't know how to answer that question anymore. But except that when somebody does step up and tell it like it is, and I have some experience with this myself, nothing gets you in trouble like the truth. When somebody does step up and tell it like it is, like President Trump, the entire universe, the forces of the universe seem to come crashing down on you. From the New York Times and ABC News to HBO and Showtime, they create shows to mock you and ridicule you, and our cartoon president and the circus and Bill Maher and all these, and just the forces of the universe are arrayed against you, because the Democrats have very systematically over the course of decades insinuated themselves into all of the mechanisms that you would insinuate yourself into if you had actually been an invading army. If you had at the end of the when like say the Soviet Union invades Eastern Europe, they take over the radio stations, the newspapers, they put out their propaganda, and that's what we get with NPR and all of the rest, and CNN and the rest, and then the educational system. And boy, they're way ahead of us. We've been talking about for years now, run for your local school board, because that's where the fight is. We've been talking about you going like that, and Uncle Sam needs you. We've been talking about running for school board seats, because lefties, crazy lefties, have been running for these low-level seats in county boards and the environmental board and the school board, and then those are the people that become the state reps, and then the state reps become the members of the House of Representatives. And that's that. They've been working this while we've been minding our own business, raising normal children, building businesses. They've been busy taking over the state. They're statists. We are individualists, and they're winning the fight. And it's a global fight. I mean, again, it's the yin and the yang. It's the darkness and the light. It's good versus evil. It's been the struggle for all of humanity, tyranny against freedom, and we're still in it. In our generation, right now, we're kind of back on our heels. But let me tell you, the Reagan era turned a whole lot of people, including me, around. I was raised in a Democrat, not a left-wing liberal household, but a Democrat household. And Ronald Reagan turned me around. I think Donald Trump probably turned millions and millions. I know he turned many millions and millions of people around. And I think the Democrats are turning people against them right now. Now, why don't Republicans come out and call it an invasion? Because they're all too spineless. And they're afraid. It's fear. There's a lot of this is driven by fear that their political careers will be crushed and demolished because the forces of the universe are arrayed against you. That's a reality.
Ready for your next question?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
You seen the new recommendations from Fauci?
No.
The forehead sprays droplets. I got a 6 head. So our next question is from Mary Claire Kendall.
Mary Claire Kendall.
Hi, Chris.
Hi there. I see you.
Yeah. You share my father's birthday, so.
Is that right? Your father, me, and Frank Sinatra.
Yeah. I remember you called him a couple of birthdays ago.
But is that right? That's
yeah, nice. Paul. Yeah, Paul. But anyway, let me just make a little comment. I think, and I'll ask my question. It seems to me that the Democrats have been getting away with murder, so to speak. And they keep getting away worse and worse with the Russia hoax and the election. I think it's pretty clear that there were irregularities. And don't you think it's interesting? And personally, I think sort of the mask is coming off. But don't you think it's interesting that in Arizona that the Senate is hand counting 2.1 million ballots in Maricopa, along with forensically auditing the machines, it's the only county where they use the Dominion voting systems, which I just discovered the other when the Democrats came out Monday and had this press conference and saying, oh, there's nothing to see there. I mean, I don't know why they're so afraid, because if there's nothing to see there, then they wouldn't mind. But anyway, don't you think that's interesting that that's happening at the same time that their border is being breached and their state is being deluged with COVID infected, illegal immigrants, also terrorists. I mean, they know that there's a lot of terrorists, a lot of drug smugglers at the very same time. And it's just horrible what's going on. I listen to sometimes the Steve Bannon podcast. I always listen to you, but I was listening to that too. And it is horrific. I mean, what is going on is unbelievable. I mean, they're bringing up Mack trucks, the cartels. They actually bring them into Texas. Yeah. And they actually unload hundreds of guys, in their 20s.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't say, oh, we got to check in with border security. I mean, right. I mean, this is what's going on is horrific. And do you think there's like some relationship to why all these states are suddenly popping? I mean, Wisconsin's popping. They say it's good governance. Arizona doesn't have that kind of charade. Let good governance. No, they want to see whether or not Trump won or not. And I think it's going to be kind of like Antrim County, where it was completely flipped. Trump won big.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, honestly, this is where, for the most part, that's the level that this thing must be fought on a county level, on a city level. And Republican Party organizations have to aggressively pursue the truth. And I mean, I talk about this all the time. I'm not a conspiracy theory person. There's never really been a conspiracy theory that I cotton to. I grew up with journalistic sensibilities. I'm a nuts and bolts kind of facts person, and give me the facts. And I'd make an excellent juror. I've said this before, make a really excellent juror because I'm all about the facts and just the fact, like O.J. Simpson, but I'm probably guilty. I think I'm probably guilty, but I'd make a terrible member of a lynch mob because I don't get whipped up into a frenzy by what a bunch of people are saying. I'm like, well, okay, a bunch of people are saying this. Let's examine the facts and let's get into the minutia and get granular about it and tell me what's going on. And that's where the fight really needs to be fought, is in on a county level. And the left, again, has been very effective over the course of many years at taking over these local kind of low-level institutions on a city level, on a community level, everything from the water board to the school board and so on. And strangely, a great many of them seem to be perfectly content being corrupt. And I'm not a corrupt person at all. I'm an incredibly uncorrupt and hopefully maybe uncorruptible person. But the reality is that those county levels and the recounts, that's where you get into the facts, where you can establish in a fashion that is good enough to prove in court to a jury of your peers, hopefully of objective people who are interested in the truth. And this is a really big problem right now, is we got a whole lot of people in our culture who have no regard for what is true and what is not true. And I'm just hung up on the truth. If you can prove to me that there was a win here and this guy won and that guy lost, prove it to me. But when it's in question, I really want to have the evidence. I really want to have it proved to me, not by sort of wild accusations, but by the nuts and bolts and the facts and the numbers. Bring them to me and show them to me. Now, there was something else I wanted to say in response to you, to what you said. What was it? What was it?
I can't quite read your mind yet.
Don't you know what I was?
We're getting there.
What else I was going to say?
It was going to be really smart, though, I could tell.
We've been working together for 15 years now, 15 years. And Michael Piercy was, when I first started here, was what would you say? You were
an industrious worker,
kind of a lazy, slovenly,
always
feet up on the control board,
laser.
texting his friends while I was on the air. And I was like, and what did I say? What's the line?
Well, you're talking about the one where you said, you come to work, you'll work.
That's right.
You're here to work. Don't text your friends. Don't have fun. Do your job.
Now, you have fun at work. You just don't, not people in other buildings. But, when you're at work, you work. And he caught on. He was, what was your title then? Board operator?
Yeah.
And now you're
executive producer of a
Executive-
nationally syndicated radio
executive
program.
producer. So he's shaped up a little bit. He still drinks too much. We only have 2 beers left, but just kidding. He doesn't really drink too much. I was only making that up.
I thought you were talking about the time you asked if, like, we were training someone and said, "You're learning a lot." And she said, "Oh, yes, I am." He said, "Are you learning not to come to work smelling like cigarettes and bong water?" And she had no answer.
No, yeah, that was, it was 15 years ago. It was a while ago. But I think I needed to answer another part of your question. I apologize if I.
Well, she puts in the chat. I'll try to
Okay.
get something in, but in the
Okay.
meantime, Cynthia Fox will be our last video question of the evening.
Is that right? Okay. Cynthia Fox, I'm just getting warmed up. There's Cynthia Fox. I see you, and I see your ceiling and your ceiling fan. Hello, your ceiling fan. Hello, Cynthia Fox. Oh, you're muted. I think you're muted. Oh, you're still muted. Do you know sign language? Because I got the He-Man Woman Haters sign. You got, is that peace or victory? That's live long and prosper. I know some of those. Let's get the mute thing. Now it's still muted.
I'll just have to read her question.
Oh, we can do the hearing impaired or the microphone impaired. Come on. Oh,
Is that a fix?
no, still muted.
Cynthia's question was as follows.
It
and I quote,
is.
It is.
We can see you and now we'll get your question.
Cynthia is confused as to why the maniacal woke culture warriors have a problem with Dr. Seuss. Most notably, the 2 presumed alter egos of the Cat in the Hat, Thing 1 and Thing 2. One would think these folks would be in full support of any character who professes to have 0 sexual identity. So what is the problem with Dr. Seuss?
You would think that, wouldn't you? You would think that they're like the original Muppets or something. I think that Jim Henson and that other Muppet guy, I think they stole everything from Dr. Seuss. Really, you got fuzzy. They're blue and they're red and they're green and they're yellow, and they're fuzzy things. And they are kind of genderless, right? They're kind of genderless,
They're thingies.
like so many Democrats today, and they're kind of genderless. Why do they have problems with it? And honestly, I've come to the conclusion that there is an epidemic of mental illness in the United States of America, and it's rampant. That these people, I've been talking about this for years, how they organize, and they really do. They organize. I think thank you very much for the question. You looked wonderful. I'm sorry that we couldn't hear your voice there. They are maladjusted, malevolent, misanthropic miscreants who are completely, maladjusted is kind of a key word. And I don't know how it happened, but they're not well adjusted to the world that we live in today. They're not comfortable living in the world we're in. And they just can't wait to be offended by something. I'm offended by almost nothing. Honestly, I was watching a Dave Chappelle thing. I think it was on Netflix. And they got old Richard Pryor things on there too. But I was watching Dave Chappelle, and he uses a lot of words and has a lot of themes that would be offensive to most people. And I just laugh because he's a funny guy. I'm impossible to offend, virtually impossible to offend when it comes to most things. But the left just takes umbrage with everything. They take offense at everything. And here's I think that a certain number of people that live among us are just going to be chronically unhappy and miserable all their lives. They're going to die that way. But misery loves company, and they want to inflict themselves on the rest of us by insisting and demanding that we behave as they behave. But they're miserable, and I don't want to behave as they behave. I don't want to be as they are. I don't want to be more like them. And let me also say that they're utterly intolerant. They commit all of these acts of intolerance in the name of tolerance, of course. The French leftists used to have a phrase, I can't do it in French, but the old French leftist phrase is, there's nothing that is not to be tolerated except intolerance. There's nothing should not be tolerated except intolerance. And they have no idea what a logical pretzel that is, because I think they're crazy. And honestly, the left has organized very effectively crazy people. They've organized and unionized crazy people who are just chronically miserable and unhappy with the world and everything in it. And that is a sad state of affairs. I like to say that we've always had crazy people, but we didn't used to listen to them. And now, not only do we listen to them, but they're in charge. And that is, and it's a really dangerous thing. I'm still trying to show my screensaver here, but there are too many messages coming in, so it won't allow me. Because my screensaver, maybe have we texted it out or tweeted it out or something? The picture is of Joe Biden doing a face plant on the steps of Air Force One, going up Air Force One. It's kind of amusing, but I'm getting so many texts that I can't give me a clean screen on the thing. But they're miserable, unhappy people who are just looking for something to be offended by. And I don't know who raised them, who made them that miserable, who made them that maladjusted. I've always been Mr. Happy-go-lucky going through the world. I think most people are great. I really do. I think most people that vote Democrat, at least until recently, have been great. But they've unionized crazy. They have made crazy fashionable. And they just can't wait to be offended by something. And I don't get it. But back to the, how do we win this thing? I got to imagine that people are growing up looking at this. I would hope if I were a teenager looking at this, I would say, why are these people so angry about everything? Why are they so miserable about it? We're supposed to be the angry ones and conservative. I was raised, like, oh, these terrible right-wingers are so angry about everything. No, Ronald Reagan to William Bennett to me to Rush Limbaugh to, Sean Hannity to Tucker Carlson. Who's angry? None of these people are angry people, but Barack Obama yelling at us and Joe Biden is having mental meltdowns that his anger thing is about dementia. It's one of the signs of dementia. But these people are so angry and they're so miserable and they're so unhappy and they kind of ruin everybody's fun. If a whole generation comes up in that mold, then Western civilization in the United States, we're in for a terrible century. We really are in for a terrible century. In the 20th century, there were a lot of rough things there, but we were supposed to have learned a lot there. Why are they so angry about Dr. Seuss? It's because they're angry about everything. They can't help but be angry because they're malcontented, malevolent, maladjusted miscreants. And that's who they are. And we have to navigate our way through these waters, but we have to look at the long game too. And that means school boards, that means campuses, it means school curricula, and it means running for the local offices and growing the next generation. And again, they always overplay their hand. They always have, and they're certainly doing it now. I mean, I think, and there's a lot of talk now, that the Democrats already know that they're going to be massacred in the House of Representatives in 2022. And that's why they're trying to give the bumps rush to everything they can get through now and kill the filibuster. They have no respect for our culture, our country, our history, our nothing. They're tearing down statues in Lafayette Square and every place else. Abraham Lincoln statues they're tearing down, renaming schools that are named for George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and Abraham Lincoln and Ben Franklin. I mean, come on, they're nuts. And how do we win that fight? I guess we win it by, as Joe Biden said today, the Chinese proverb, each march of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. And you take steps at home and in your neighborhood and in your community. And we grow. We have to refight the revolution over again because they're murdering it and they're not on our side.
Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Piercy.
Thank you, everybody, for being here.
And our plan, this is I don't know, it's a first of this virtual politics in a pint. Normally we'd be having a beer and shaking hands and talking face to face. This is, thanks to Al Gore, we can do this. But our goal, our aim is to do it in person, for real. Little Pat Buchanan, Tom Hawk Chop there. Can I say Tom Hawk Chop?
No, absolutely.
And a little, and next time it is our hope because of the jab, because of the Trump miracle of all the vaccines. It is our hope that the next time we do this, we're going to be able to do it in person But I got to say, Tim Euro, great job tonight, making the mechanics and the technical part of this work. It is a first time. It's kind of like Joe Biden's press conference. Hopefully it was a little more cogent than that and a little more enlightening than that or something. But thank you very much for all being here. Thank you for making WMAL the great success that it is, and you know, our humble radio show that we put on for you every day, where we just try to give the facts, tell the truth, and point out what is wrong with so many institutions and what's wrong with our culture. You know, the fight that's going on. We're in the fight, and do not be disheartened. What is it that Sean Hennedy's "Let not your heart be troubled," as Sean Hannity likes to say? You know, it is a troubling time, but we've all generations lived through troubling times. I mean, again, my parents and grandparents, between the Depression and the Dust Bowl and World War II and grandfather World War I, we're in a tough spot, but we're not in as tough a spot as previous generations, whereas earlier generations. We don't even have the Soviet Union. Well, we kind of do, but they're here now. So that's the thing. We have to win the fight all over again. We win it by being smart, and I'd like to think by telling the truth, being honest about human liberty and freedom being the most important thing in the world. Now, the lefties think that that's what they're advocating, but of course they're advocating the exact opposite. And perhaps that's where we win the argument and change minds and win the next generation, so that we can save the greatest project in the history of the world, that is the United States of America, the greatest experiment and demonstration of the success that we can have as a species, not separating us by race and by class and by culture and by ethnicity, but e pluribus unum. The United States is the greatest country and the greatest human experiment in the history of the world. And we make the case by winning the argument over the shrieking, screaming, unionized lunatics, burning, looting, sacking, and attacking our cities across the country. I think we have the winning argument, but we have to make it, and we have to win the argument over the din that the left owns because of their information dominance. You know, so is that heartening, or is that, I'm not sure. But the fight is on. Look, in 1942, we didn't know the fight was won. Isn't that right? When we were manning the Fulda Gap and they were shooting them while climbing over the Berlin Wall, we didn't know the fight was won. When Ronald Reagan said, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down that wall," we didn't know the fight was won. And then a few years later, the sun came up, the birds sang again, and we had won. We were victorious. Little did we know that there would be another fight for the next generation. And here we are. And here we are. God bless America. Thank you for being here. We're going to win because we're right. It's about human liberty. Thanks, everybody. See you tomorrow morning.
You know, I heard Hunter Biden got the vaccine, but he gave it to himself under a bridge.